Hi, my name is Stacy Pruitt, and this is my cultural assignment. I chose the Japanese culture, a little bit about Japan and the Japanese culture. The capital of Japan is Tokyo. Japan has a constitutional monarchy headed by an emperor. The current emperor is Akihito. Japan has a political leader, and that is the Prime Minister. Japan has a four-tier court system headed by the 15-member Supreme Court. The country has a European-style civil law system. Languages that are the language that's spoke in Japan is Japanese. However, there are 3 written languages, and that's hiragana, kanji, and onomatopoe. I actually have a friend currently learning how to write in hiragana and kanji. Her mother is from Japan, but I'm not exactly sure where. And she can speak mostly, but she was born here in the U.S., so it takes her a little longer to learn. The majority of the religion in Japan practices Buddhism and Shintoism. Here's a picture showing where Japan is, and it actually outlines where the capital, Tokyo, is. Educational status and occupations. The education system was changed after World War II. The old 6533 system was changed to a 6334 system, which is 6 years of elementary school, 3 years of junior high school, 3 years of senior high school, and 4 years of the university. This is the reference as it would be to the American system. Japan has one of the most educated populations in the world. Most schools operate on a 3-term system with the new year starting in April, which is different than the U.S. since we start generally in August. The modern educational system started in 1872 and modeled after the French school system, which begins in April. Some common occupations are teacher, fisherman, model, chef, engineer, and oddly enough, I found that they are an adult filmmaker. Apparently, Japan has one of the largest adult film industries. Learn something new every day. Family goals and priorities. Family is always the priority in the Japanese culture. Family is particularly important in many trades or craft industries where skills are passed down from generation to generation. Those skills that are learned are super important in order to continue on in that family trade, to continue to support your family. Unless you find a completely new trade to pass down to your family, it will be hard for certain families to sustain, because this is what they've lived off for so many years. The goals are to support the family. In modern day Japan, it is hard for families to support more than their immediate family under one roof. In the past, the immediate and the extended families stayed in the same house. Family roles and organizations. Family is extremely important. This includes immediate family, extended family, and deceased family. Ancestors play a role in the Japanese day-to-day family values. In addition to real familial relationships, families often adopted families are often adopted as branch families, people who were not related by blood. Most of the time, families pair up. That's how these branch families become. It's because it's hard for one family to support their immediate and extended family without the help of non-blood relatives. Typically, farming families pair up with a family from the city with consistent income. And this is because farming has kind of a on-off type income where it can make good money, but then there's times of the year that it doesn't make good money, and then depending on the weather, there could be or major disaster, there could be no income for the family. So if they have a branch family that has a consistent income or works like a 9-to-5 type job, they have the ability to help their other branch family. Birth and death rituals. After death, there is a ceremony called Water of the Last Moment, or Matsugo no Mezu, where lips of the deceased are moistened with a little bit of water. After death, most will have a household shrine. Ancestors are a part of their family tree, as they are part of everybody's family tree, but the Japanese culture uses their family tree on a day-to-day basis. So they may or may not actually involve the ancestors on a day-to-day basis when they are going about their lives. After birth, you will spend between 5 and 8 days in the hospital, unlike Western countries where you spend 1 to 3. The immediate goal after birth is to create a strong familial bond. Japanese parents participate in naming ceremonies called ashikiyas. Ashikiyas take place roughly a week after the newborn has entered the world. Unlike the U.S., where people have their names prior to going to the hospital, or it's abnormal for somebody to leave the hospital without a name. Spirituality. The dominant religion in Japan is Buddhism. Japan places an emphasis on aligning your mind, body, and soul. People are baptized in Shinto shrines. As noted in previous slides, Japanese families typically have a shrine of deceased family members in their home. The importance of the shrine is so high that when anyone new comes into the home, they will be asked if they want to pay their respects to the ancestors. So if you go into a home in Japan and you are not used to having a conversation with ancestors or a shrine, you might want to think of something to say when you do enter somebody's home, because it is typically expected of you to pay respects to their ancestors. Nutrition and common foods. Typical foods eaten are bamboo shoots, mushrooms, cooked rice, fish, soy sauce, miso, and tofu. As you can tell, everything is fresh from the earth. Whatever is available in Japan is what they eat. Could you see where a Japanese native, I put here, can you see where a Japanese native in your hospital could have an issue with more than just the care they're given when they're in the hospital here in the U.S.? Healthy food is very important in the Japanese culture, and as we all know, that is not always what is offered in our hospitals. I know in the hospital that I work at, they actually only offer one meal, like one entree per meal, and you're required to eat that. They will do different versions of that one meal if you have a diet order specific, such as like a carb control or a low sodium or mechanical soft, or if you are post-surgery and you need like liquids and advance as tolerated. Obviously you wouldn't get the meal if you're advancing liquids, but generally it's just the one meal and they just alter it as needed. We used to go around and actually offer a menu and let people pick, and for some reason they decided that what was happening was people weren't getting their correct meals, and that was the biggest complaint. It was about food service and the fact that they didn't get their meals, and then By the time they realized it, they couldn't replace that exact meal that they wanted, so people weren't getting the food that they wanted. So to reduce that and put more emphasis on the actual food, they went to this one meal system. However, I work night shift, so I don't deal a lot with the meals, but from what I understand, you can't always get a like cheeseburger and fries or something of that nature, like from the grill. But if you had a patient who was from Japan and they're used to eating the type of food that they're used to eating, which is basically fresh, they would be pretty disappointed when they got the majority of our food as a processed offered to them in the hospital. I did read where a changing trend for Japanese culture is that they're going to a more plant, vegetable-based diet and taking out their it didn't look like they were much of a red meat type, or a little bit of chicken, but mostly fish. But they were actually removing that from their diet and doing more vegetables. I have this picture because I thought it related to healthcare, and I thought it was interesting to look at because, one, the food. As you can see, she's got several different bowls and looks like soups and rice and all different types of foods here, and it's just completely different than what you would see on a tray here in the US. I also, as you can see, it looks like she has a curtain blocking between her and another patient, which would be why she's probably wearing the mask, because she's in a semi-private room. I don't know if it's everywhere in the US, but I do know in the city that I live in, it's required for everybody to have a private room. However, we do have a few older hospitals that have semi-private rooms, and as long as they don't do construction, they can leave them semi-private, but as soon as they remodel for any reason, they have to make all their rooms private. So I thought this was a lot different than what we here offer in the States, because it's small, looks like they're sharing it, and completely different type of food than what we offer. Healthcare practices. Japan has one of the most rapidly aging societies, and this could be due to a low birth rate. Healthcare costs in Japan are billed a little differently than in the United States. In Japan, the patient is responsible for 30% of the bill, and the government pays 70%, which means that 100% of the people in the country have health insurance. Different than what we have here, since we all have private insurance. There are people who can have state insurance or no insurance, so we consider that underinsured or no insurance, and people can have their insurance and not be able to afford it either way. So diseases and health conditions. In Japan, there's a major stigma against mental health issues, and they rarely receive treatment. Japan has the third highest life expectancy in the world, and some of the high diseases and conditions that they have there would be pneumonia, low back pain and other musculoskeletal diseases, ischemic heart disease, Alzheimer's, and strokes. I tend to think that a lot of these conditions are peaking to the top of the list because they're having an aging population similar to what we're having here in the US. Obviously, as you get older, it's harder to fight off pneumonia. As you get older, your bones tend to break down, losing a lot of that calcium and the ability to keep them strong. Again, as you get older, ischemic heart disease tends to be something that can happen, and that goes hand in hand with Alzheimer's, or I'm sorry, hand in hand with the stroke. And the Alzheimer's, from what I was reading, is kind of newer to their list. So the summary of the culture is the high importance of family, the natural foods, and the mental approach, a mindset for cure. There's my references. Thank you.